I have finally awoken from my slumber. What is up, guys? It is Creighton, otherwise known as CheekyBeeks, and as you guys might know, I am the Dogman guy. As you can see here, I have a whole new setup, but actually it's not too new because it is actually the same room that I recorded the first Dogman video in. But now it is all new and renovated, and this will be the place that I will be recording on for a little while. So, yeah. Say hello to this new place. Today we are going to be talking about all new Dogman things. Now, if you are a Dogman fan who has been at least on the internet somewhat, you know that Dogman fans have been eating good as of recently. We have first gotten the new DogManMovie trailer as well as the DogManMovie release, which, as we know, will be coming later this month as the recording of this video. But we also have a new book called Dogman Big Gym Begins, and we also have a new game called Dogman Mission Impossible. And today, I'm going to be talking about all three of them in this video. First off, we're gonna start off with the Dogman movie trailer. Now, this is not something I was expecting out of the complete blue. I kind of just came home from school one day and saw that the trailer was posted, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's finally here! And I checked the trailer. I was pleasantly surprised with the results. First up, we're going to be talking about the awkward but honestly pretty confident 3D models. The thing is that some of the characters, I mean, especially from different angles, kind of look like M&Ms, sorta, which is pretty weird. But the 3D models are confident, and honestly, they're pretty faithful to the book. When hearing that the Dogman movie was going to be in 3D, I was kind of nervous because there are just some art styles that just can't be replicated into 3D and actually look good, but I was actually pleasantly surprised with how they executed the 3D models, and I am genuinely surprised. But honestly, when it comes to the work of the people who made this movie, they have a great track record, especially with their 3D films. I honestly wasn't surprised at all that the movie character models were good, because I mean, DreamWorks Animation, the people who are making the movie, did an amazing job. Speaking of characters, I want to talk about some of the design changes. Now, the most prominent design changes that I can think of from the top of my head are Officer Knight from the first part of the book. Officer Knight originally just looked like a regular character with a cop hat, but now they actually added some depth to him. They gave him more of an oval / egg-shaped head, and they also gave him a little bit of hair as well. And there was also the nurse ladies, which their designs were slightly changed, but overall, it's mainly the same, to be totally honest. But the biggest and most confusing change to me had most certainly had to be the Sarah Hadoff change. Now, Sarah Hadoff looks completely different in the movies than she does in the books. I'm not exactly sure why. She has more of a teal color palette rather than her signature red color palette. And she also has a different hairstyle. She is still an Australian accented news reporter though, so they didn't change that about her character. It's mainly just the design. I'm not exactly sure why they decided to go with the design, but if they're not harming what the character means and how the character is supposed to be handled in the movie itself, then it doesn't really matter what she looks like to me personally. But I can't understand that people are a little bit shocked by this, considering that everything else seems to be more faithful to the rest of the book series. We have to talk about the voice actors next, and I am so glad that they didn't get some random Joe Schmo off the street to voice act the characters. All the voice actors seem to be well picked. I'd imagine that Dave Pilkey himself picked the voice actors, And for a lot of the characters, I would expect that's what they sound like based on their designs. So that's how you know they did a good job in picking it. The only questionable one I kind of didn't really like that much was Pete Davidson as Petey. I don't think it fit the role because I thought that Petey had more of a raspy toned voice. I also think that little Petey's voice is also a little weird as well from what I've seen from the second trailer. I haven't had as much time to analyze the second trailer as I have the first one, but from what I can tell, little Petey's voice and Petey's voice in particular sound a little weird. But then after hearing that Pete Davidson was voicing Petey, it kind of made sense because, you know, Pete and Petey kind of sound similar, you know, so maybe that's what they thought when they were casting. My biggest question for this movie is, what will they adapt? It seems like they have so much ideas in mind for this movie. How many books will they adapt? How many books will they bring into the story? As we know, we saw the vacuum cleaner from the first book in the trailer. We also saw the Greg the Dog and Officer Knight story, which was also a first book thing. But we also saw the treasure chest tank from the second book, Dogman Unleashed, and we also saw Little Petey, which was obviously from Dogman, A Tale of Two Kitties. We also saw this bee robot thing that Petey and Little Petey fly on, which I can't remember for the life of me which book this came on, but I do know that it was definitely a later book. So the thing is that I'm wondering, like, what are they going to be doing? How many books are they going to cover? Will there be a sequel? You know, these are the things that I have in my mind. And honestly, I feel like all of those questions really depend on how... I feel like all those questions will not be answered until we actually get to see the movie itself. Because as of right now, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't even give a theory on the idea. I also want to talk about the giving of more depth to Officer Knight and Greg the Cop. I can't really tell if they're going to be really drilling in and hammering the backstory in this movie, but from what I've seen, I can see that they're giving a little more depth to that story. Because the original story goes is that they went on a mission to cut the wire of a bomb, and they ended up failing because dogs are colorblind. But it seems like Officer Knight and Greg the Dog have a little bit more of a role to play in the story. Maybe they'll flesh out the characters a little more, give a little more backstory to them. Speaking of backstories for Greg the Dog, by the way, hint hint for the future Big Jim Begins, but we'll talk about that later. One thing that puzzled me in this movie was the use of Daft Punk music in the trailer. I think it was pretty weird. I'm not trying to criticize their musical choice. Everyone has music that they're entitled to, but it makes me wonder if that there's going to be some sort of big musical thing, like if they're going to even add their own music, like have the characters sing and whatnot. I doubt it, but, you know, there's a possibility. Not to mention that, you know, usually the beginning credits scenes in movies also have music that they pick, and I wonder if they're going to stick with the Daft Punk soundtrack for the movie. Going back on what this movie will adapt through the book, I want to know how many villains will be in this movie. Because if they're going to adapt more than one book, are we going to see more villains? Are we going to see Flat Petey? Are we going to see Flippy? I want to know these things, because especially that machine that made a cameo from Dogman Unleashed, I wonder if they're going to adapt that story into the movie as well. If that's the case, I hope that doesn't mean that they're going to take the spotlight away from Petey, because especially in the Dogman movie, I feel like Petey should be the main focus as the villain of the story, because he is the most OG villain, not to mention that he is the villain in most of the Dogman books overall. Now, do I think that this movie is faithful to the original? To be totally honest, I think that the movie is very faithful to the original. everything I've seen was ripped straight from the books. Of course, there were some extra added gag scenes as a little DreamWorks flair, but other than that, it seems to be the same as the original stories were. Now, of course, this question will actually get answered until we actually see the movie, but I would imagine so from what I've seen so far. The trailers seem incredibly promising. Again, the only thing that it doesn't seem to be faithful for the rest of the books are some of the character designs, and even then, I think that a lot of the character designs have been improved from the books. And one thing you want to strive for in a movie is to even succeed what it's adapting, because that way the movie will be even more successful than the books were. And the last thing I want to talk about for movies are the sequels. Now, it really depends on how much books are going to be adapting in this movie, because again, that is really the thing that I am curious about. But with how many Dogman books are in the series, I'd imagine that there's going to be a sequel. And of course, there's also the Captain Underpants movie, which a lot of people are thinking is finally going to make its faithful return now that the Dogman movie is going to be amazing and out there. As for which movie I think is going to do better, if the Captain Underpants movie is going to be better than the Dogman movie or vice versa, I think that the Dogman movie is going to perform better than the Captain Underpants movie. And I know this sounds like bias, considering that I am a Dogman fan to heart, and it is how I was introduced into Dave Pilkey's work. But the reason why I believe so is because Dogman is just overall more a popular series than Captain Underpants was, especially considering that, Captain Underpants is one of the banned books and whatnot due to the fact that, it's a man in underwear. But I think that the Dogman movie is going to perform exceptionally well, but that's not saying that I don't want a second Captain Underpants movie, because honestly, the Captain Underpants movie itself made me more hooked into Captain Underpants as a whole than the book. So and that's another reason why I'm extremely excited for the Dogman movie as well, because I'm wondering if it's going to be better than the book, and if that's the case, then I'd imagine it's going to sell millions. Is it going to be movie of the year material? Well, it does have a lot of competition to go against, including that new Superman movie. DC movies sell like Hot Pockets. And of course, we have other studios like Disney and whatnot that are also going to be producing movies this year, and whether or not they're good, they're also going to be selling like Hot Pockets because it's Disney. They're literally one of the biggest film corporations on the planet. But I do think that it's going to be an amazing movie that's going to sell incredibly well, and it doesn't seem to be offensive to anyone or anything, so I'd imagine it would be selling across all countries, unlike some other movies that are more controversial and can't be sold in this country or that country. So yeah, I definitely think that the Dogman movie is going to hit well in the box office. Next up, we have to talk about Dogman Mission Impossible. Now, I know you guys are going to get upset at me for this, but I did not play the entirety of Mission Impossible. And I'm going to tell you, I was definitely planning to, but then I saw that $40 price tag, and and my jaw absolutely dropped. I honestly thought that a DogManGame was going to be $20 at most, but $40 is really cutting it. Inflation is getting certainly crazy these days. The $40 price tag is honestly a shocker to me, especially considering about some plot points that I was sharing later in the video. But what's the most jaw-dropping part to me is that they're selling a $40 game where the box art has ADHD wearing rocket boots, and the game has him wearing flip-flops. And that tells you everything you need to know about the game. I'm not saying that I'm going to clown on the game or anything. I think the developers did an amazing job, but I'm going to be explaining later why I don't exactly believe that the game deserved a $40 price tag. I think that a $20 price tag, or even a little less than that, would have been the perfect price to put this game at, especially with things I'm going to be talking about. First, I want to talk about the pros in the game. I want to talk about the good usage of characters because in both stages that the demo of the game offers, because that is what I'm going based off of here, the characters were used to their full extent. Now, I did end up switching to ADHD for most of the run, considering he has a higher jump, but Dogman and Little Petey were also used quite a bit as well for me. And they do force you to use a certain character to get through certain areas a lot, which I know could be a little bit of a setback for some people, but it is executed extremely nicely. The controls for the game are also good. They're mostly fluid. The only thing I would have wished for is a run button, because there's a lot of times in the game where I feel like I'm just running aimlessly and the running is so slow. I would much rather go faster in the game, so I hope in a future update or maybe a future game, if the same developers make another game, which I do think they have the possibility to do, I think they should add a run button to make things go a little bit faster. Or maybe I'm just spoiled from all of the games that do have run buttons in them that makes me think that the game is a little more slow paced. The collectibles in this game definitely wasn't another strong suit, as a lot of them were pretty challenging to find. They weren't that extreme or anything from what I've played so far. It just requires you to think outside of the box a bit. There are two different types of main collectibles in this game, really. There are the badge collectibles, where you could get badges, and then there are the tadpole collectibles. Now, as for the tadpole part, I'm not exactly sure why they made tadpoles collectibles, but they are pretty prominent in the Dogman series, so I'm not here to hate too much. To beat the level with all 5 badges, you need to find at least 3 of them in the level, from what I believe. To find the 4th badge, you need to collect all the bones in the stage. Well, actually, not all of them, but you have to collect them for your bone meter at the corner of the screen to fill up. And then the last one you get automatically whenever you complete a stage. Now, one thing that bothers me about this game is most certainly the poor music. You see, with the music, it kind of just loops the entire time. It is literally just the same soundtrack, like it's some sort of Flash game. I wasn't really into it. I mean, the music isn't bad by any means, but I wish there was more variety with music, because one thing that I really love about games is their music. I actually love game soundtracks a lot. I don't listen to a lot of music in general, but I can get behind a good game soundtrack. Good examples of this are games like Sonic Mania and Super Mario 3D World. Those games have absolutely immaculate music that makes me want to play them time and time again. And I just wish that the Dogman game would have something similar to that. But really, it was just the same music. It was just the same music that looped every 5 seconds, so it wasn't even that long of music. So I definitely think that they could do better with that. Another thing that they could have done better with was the static animation. Now, the animations in the games don't really look that good, to totally be honest. It kind of looks like they were going for that paper feel, which honestly makes sense because it's a game adapting a book after all. But I kind of wish that they could have just tried a little more on the animations. It feels like that they just used Photoshop to edit images from the book and used those as the animation for the game. So I kind of wish they could have just did a little better with that. The animation does remind me of a game called Planet Pilkey that I used to play a long time ago on my old iPad. Planet Pilkey was a pretty interesting game from what I can remember. It was a top-down game where you can move the characters by tapping on the screen, from what I can believe. It has been a very long time since I played Planet Pilkey, and I unfortunately didn't do the research on what the game looked like or how the game played for this video, because I was kind of just too lazy to do that. But the game's animations in general just remind me of that Planet Pilkey feel. And how am I supposed to be comparing a $40 game to a game that is absolutely free? You know, so I think that if they were trying to strive for a $40 price tag, they could have made the animations just slightly bit better. Next up, I'm going to talk about the level themes of the game. It's really the last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of the game here. The level themes were pretty interesting. The first one was kind of a city escape area, where the second one was a marshmallow factory. And now I haven't read the Dogman series in a while, but I don't remember any sort of marshmallows. So that was pretty weird to see, but I did have a genuinely good experience with the game overall, and if I had to give it a rating out of 10, I would give it a good 7 out of 10. It was a pretty interesting experience that I genuinely had a fun time with, and it kind of got some laughs out of me here and there. Just before we move on to the next section here, I just want to ask the question, should I play this game? I have the $40 to buy this game as of this moment, but I'm not sure if I should buy it yet. So leave it in the comments down below. If you want to see me play this game, a let's play of this game on this channel, I would most certainly do it. And I would even provide my own commentary in doing so. So let me know if you guys want to see that in the comment section. Wow, this has been a pretty long adventure so far. We've talked about the movie, we've talked about the game. And I want to give the book its own episode because there is a lot to talk about for the book itself, and the video is getting quite long now. So thank you guys so much for watching for now. Part 2 will come out literally in a couple of seconds. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button as always, and I will see you all in the next one.